Gmail, right?
Jeff McCabe one,
Yeah.
and Jeffrey McCabe.
Okay.
Jeffrey dot McCabe.
If that's the real number.
Oh, forget it, I don't need it now, I got this.
Less?
Less. The
I don't know, we'll have to
502.9.
ask the committee that drew up the warrant article. That would be the selectmen.
We stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Chairman Lage is currently out of town, so I am filling in as chairman. No matter how little I appreciate that promotion or not.
God bless you.
All right. So we will start out with public hearing on the proposed 2020 budget. There have been handouts given. The current budget as proposed, we do. I will say there are two items that we do have to still get information on, so there may be amendments taken at the deliberative session, simply because we have not received cost from the state on some mandates that we have. But the proposed budget is $2,501,648, which is a 1.26% increase over last year. There are many things in there that we were able to take down, but we do have some items that we were forced to increase on. Specifically, we had some issues with legal that we may have to make sure we take care of, and there was some cost increases and such with insurance. But this is where we sit. We will do our best to answer any questions if anyone has any questions. Yes, sir.
I saw an agenda, I thought at least the one I saw said, we're having a bond issue at 7, a bond hearing at 7.
That's what it says.
Oh, okay,
At 7.
that's 7.
It's not 7.
No, I know.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, and we'll get to that point.
We'll take a time out from this if we're still going.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes and no.
Can you expand on what those things from the state might be?
So a couple months ago with the landfill cap testing, the state came out and mandated that we did some additional testing of the landfill area concerning the PFAS because of the water contamination specifically that came up in Merrimack and some things like that. They said, we would like some additional testings. And our question was, well, we'll do the testings and then what happens? And they wouldn't answer our question. But the testing was mandated, so we had to do it. We did it. Now going forward, we have to do additional testing. And we have to make sure that every landowner in that area is notified and certain wells and such are tested. Unfortunately, one of the pieces of land that abuts the land or the old landfill is Wilder Village. So when you abut a piece of property like that, every person in that subdivision needs notification.
Yeah, that's also a water system.
Exactly. So that's the issue we have. So we have not really come up to the fact of what that actual cost is to make sure that it's in the budget because we haven't gotten all that information. So unfortunately, there may be a piece. And then another piece is some additional software that may be needed for building inspection. So. Yes, sir.
I have a question on the tax rate,
Okay.
because usually, as I well know, there's more spending in one year than the previous. Did most people's taxes go down? And if they did, how could they possibly go down if we do more spending? And is it possible that there was a mistake?
No, there was no mistake. The budget The budget is, go round numbers, budget's $2 million, okay? So if the value of everyone's house jumps up, okay, so it jumps up, doubles. So everyone's value, because that was the issue. A lot of people's houses, the value jumped. So if we charge the same rate per $1,000 and the value of your house increased and we continue to charge the same amount, so if your value goes up and doubles and we continue to charge $2 per $1,000, we're now doubling what you pay in taxes, but we haven't increased the taxes, the total budget for the town. The budget stayed the same.
I understand that
Okay.
part. What I don't understand is how people's tax bills went down.
Because what you then have to do is you have to change the amount per $1,000 down so that you're still only collecting $2.4 million.
Okay, but I don't know how to do it.
Some people's houses may not have gone up as much in terms of value, so those people would actually see a reduction in the total dollars, because it's offset by those people's properties that went up, even at the normalized rate.
But if you're gonna if you spend more money, you have to get more money somewhere.
Right.
Now, if half the town went down, the other half's gotta go up quite a bit to make up for them, plus the increase in the spending.
Some people's bills went up, some people's went down, but the thing is it's based on valuation, not on the tax bill. So if the value of the house went up and we charge per $1,000 of value, then we have to lower their tax bill to still meet the same equal dollar amount.
Okay, I only found this out.
As a member of the Board of Assessors,
Mhm.
okay, I think I can shed a little light on this, okay? The town is only a component of the tax bill. And it's not the biggest component of the tax bill. So, and I'm not saying that to be sarcastic, it's
Mhm.
just the math. So, you'd have to sit and look at each item, okay? When we did a revaluation, we sometimes find a little more property that wasn't being assessed. That tends to happen. We don't find too many houses missing. We're more apt to find a house in the woods we didn't know about. But as far as, you gotta look at all the components. And within the tax rate setting, the selectmen have the ability to apply fund balance to the town's tax rate,
Mhm.
which can lower, you're giving back some of the money you had spent. I'd have to go back and look, I don't remember if you did that or not.
No, we have not done that.
You didn't give anything back.
No, because the town's portion is not changing significantly, and we're tired of supplementing other parts.
You can't be the tail wagging the dog.
Exactly.
But the bottom line is, so much money has to be raised.
Hmm.
And if the value of the property goes up, the tax rate goes down. And obviously, if all of us saw a slight decrease in our taxes, then we probably didn't spend as much money overall, or have to collect as much as we did the year before.
Right.
So maybe the school went down, I'd have to go look.
The
They-
school is about the same.
Yeah,
It's
school
about
is
the same.
flat,
Yeah, it's
basically.
pretty flat.
Yeah.
How is it this year?
It's flat. It was from 19 to 20, from last year's proposed to this year. The school is very flat.
If I recall, it was about $9,000 increase, if I recall correctly. It was published in the newspaper, but that's my recollection. It was minimal.
Yeah. And that might account for some people.
Yeah,
getting the rate
but-
down.
yeah.
No, that wouldn't account for this year. That's
No.
what happened last year.
Right, but what it comes down to is, really what it comes down to is the fact of your tax bills that you just got were based on last year's budget and whatever the current valuation is. Because the valuation went up, your tax bill went down to lower what we collected from people, so we weren't over collecting taxes. Does that make sense?
I just have to believe that there was a few things that we had going for us to make up for it. And there must be a few people that their taxes went up.
Some people's went up, Some people's went down. I mean, so I mean, from what I have heard is a lot of people's valuations went up, which meant most people's taxes went down. Some quite a bit, some very little. I think mine changed $700. So I didn't have that much of a change in mine.
I have
Yes.
one more question on
Yes, sir.
that. On this
Done
article,
for now.
yeah, okay. When I was here last, you started off, there was a discussion about wages,
Mm-hmm.
and then I noticed that there was a 2.5 to 3 hour non-public session, which the chairman explained to me is, that's where you really do wages, because it's people's compensation.
It's individual compensation, not position.
I'm not gonna go into that, because I think you're violating 91A.
No, we're not. But thank you.
Okay. I'd like to know what the outcome was, and I'd like.
It's in the budget. There's a wage line in the Board of Selectmen budget. Board of Selectmen, there's a salary for the Board of Select, for the town offices and administration. There's a total line item for that. We don't have to give you individual, and that was what we've done. We don't discuss the wages for a position. We don't set a wage range. We
Okay.
talk about individuals, and that's how we then set that line item, and it's in the budget.
Basically, for me to see what goes into that 300 and some thousand, whatever it is, I would have no idea as to.
What each and, yeah, what, you would have no idea what individual people in the office are being paid. There's two line items in there. One is for,
Nor would I have any idea of how the discussion among the selectmen took place. I would not have seen any of the, call it the interplay or, the debate. I would have missed all of that because it was not public.
correct, because
That's all I need.
because again, we discuss individuals, not positions.
Because it's
I'll come back to this at another day.
Okay.
another time.
I'll join, because I disagree with what happened.
It's kind of the same.
I think it should have been open session, it should have been by position, but that's like I said.
But again, we didn't discuss a wage range for a position in order to make a budget, because otherwise we would overinflate a budget. Because if someone didn't meet the highest quality, we would have to set the budget at the high end of that wage range, and then the person would be making less. So, like I said, we can say that, a position makes anything. So in the state, we could, and I think Scott brought it up. We had people in one area of the state made $12 an hour for a position, up to $25 an hour for a position. But we're not going to budget at $25 an hour and then pay the person $16 an hour, because now we are taxing the people of this town for something we have no intention of ever paying out.
Why would you have to why would you have to budget for the top line?
Because that's what, if we put a position there for a range, because otherwise that's what we're doing now. What we're doing now is we are taxing and putting in there for an individual. But if I looked at you and told you, not you, I'm using you as an example. If I sat there and I told you, like, this position pays $25 an hour, and I'm paying you 16, that's, again, that comes down to an individual discussion with that person, which is what we did here in non-public.
You
But-
did not have an individual discussion with the person. Otherwise
No,
you
because
would
we
have
haven't,
a
because
line
we
here.
haven't had that chance to sit down with them yet. We then hand, it has to pass.
You can't offer something you don't have the right to offer.
Right, because if the budget doesn't pass, then they're getting the same wage rate they're getting today. So, which is the whole point that was made a couple years ago, was that if the budget doesn't pass, we can't give raises. So we don't discuss it with them until it passes.
I got all I needed.
Yeah.
Explanation.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I'm sorry, Meredith.
Is there
I'm calling on Meredith.
I have a question about the fire department budget. It was my understanding after the discussion with the building inspector with regards to the split of duties for the fire inspector's position that $1,500 was going to go to the fire department's budget in order to handle the stipend for the fire inspector that was going to be doing life safety, and like daycare inspections and foster care inspections.
That was not what was then given back to me. I was not here on the second discussion for that, and I believe when we went over it, it was decided not to move that money over. So
then will it stay in the building inspector's budget and then the fire inspector will be paid from that budget?
that I will have to get clarification from Chairman Lage.
I would appreciate it, thank you.
You were here for that, Vern?
I was here, I do not recall the specifics on that one.
I remember the discussion, I don't remember the outcome.
Jay?
Just looking through this first page you gave us, we have all the actuals for 2019 except for, well, a few minor ones, but one of the largest budgets that we support in the town for the DPW. I'm wondering why that is. There's no total as of this point.
Are you looking at the front page there?
Yeah, he's
And
looking at the
but
front
also,
page.
if you look through the pages further in that packet, there's no actuals for 2019 for highway department.
Yep, I see what you're saying.
Did we get actuals?
We did,
Because they're not in the spreadsheet either.
Yeah, I,
David's spreadsheet.
yeah, that was David's spreadsheet. We
Yeah.
did have actual, what it
Yeah,
was
I
is
can
we,
go grab- Want me to go grab
yeah,
it?
if you could grab, that'd be
Please.
great. Yeah, what it was we had a discrepancy between the two sheets from what we were given, and it was actually like one day, but we had vast difference. Remember, we were sitting there.
I was at.
Oh, you were absent that day?
Nowhere close to what they actually were.
Right, they were way
So
off.
this is very deceiving,
yeah, it,
They were like from beginning
because
of
they're like
October.
October.
Yeah.
yeah, the actuals we received did not make sense at the time, so we,
I spent a whole lot more than $76,000. I spent my entire budget.
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, so we're addressing our accounting issues at this point, not what we actually
Yeah,
spent.
probably a good idea. I do have one other question while you're waiting.
Yes.
Can you explain how the maintenance line for the building maintenance stuff is all done? Is there a line item for building maintenance?
We have some,
I didn't see it on the breakdown.
We discussed one.
I mean, like general government buildings?
Oh, here it is, yeah. How was that arrived on, 'cause, nobody ever spoke to me about any needs for the fire station, so I'm not sure. I mean, nobody asked me about the mold in the last back bays and a leaky roof and, so I'm kind of curious as to how the budget was done without knowing anything about the building.
It was what was presented to us between DPW and the custodian for buildings.
that kind of begs the question, how, you obviously have buildings you're responsible for overall. How are those needs conveyed back to the Board of Selectmen? I mean, this is the first time I've heard about your mold problem.
Nobody has asked about, I mean, if we have an instant need that needs to be done, then I make, contact with Mark.
Yeah.
And usually with Scott as well.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
as far as projected repairs and things that need to be done for the coming year, nobody asked anything.
well, we should have asked the question, and even if we hadn't, you should have been indicating you had an issue that we needed to take care of or include in the budget.
Yeah.
So I think it's hopefully a communication failure that will not occur this next year.
That'd be good.
That'd be excellent.
Do we have a breakdown of the buildings that are covered under the general government building budget?
No, it was,
No, we don't have a list. I mean, There is a list, it wasn't here in the proposal that we
I
received.
think it's,
The only building I can see that's called out explicitly is the old town hall.
yeah.
Of all the departments that didn't total, this report did not total that one.
Okay.
Could we acquire that number for the deliberative session
Oh,
in
yeah.
case the question
Yeah,
is
yeah,
asked
we'll have
again?
it delivered.
This was printed out today, but for some reason, all the other departments have, total expenditure year to date, but
Not DPW.
not DPW for some reason.
Okay,
Is that
Well, obviously, we've been having some accounting issues,
entered?
and we're still dealing with it,
Yeah.
and it seems that we don't have a total on DPW.
But the report will
Well,
show zero.
since I have eye contact, I have another
Yeah,
question for you.
sure.
Accruing the cost.
4130,
Yes.
110 and 111, you got a 12% increase on 110 and a 17% increase on 111. Those are substantial dollar values.
Which accounts, I'm sorry?
The Board of Selectmen, office salaries and assistants.
Yes. That was, again, discussion, that we had basically in order to try to retain. Last year before, we did an adjustment on salaries in the police department in order to, try to retain and maintain, reward employees. And this year, we decided to do the same thing within the Board of Selectmen. Not the Board of Selectmen, but the town office salaries.
Rough number is $45,000. How many employees does that include?
4.
So you can do the average, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's substantial. Okay, thank you.
I have a question on,
Go ahead.
public works.
Mm-hmm.
The increase in salaries projected is 3%.
Yep.
The increase in overtime is 0%. Are they gonna be working less hours, you're gonna have less storms?
No, we have, we took on a full-time employee last year that we took on part of the way through the year, I believe. So we should have less overtime, and we take an assumption on storms. So it's what was proposed.
Okay, so the 3% that includes money for the additional employee. That was
Correct.
Part of the year.
I got it from.
So the wages are flat, or they actually went down?
No.
I don't know.
Well, again, when the budget goes in, when he proposed the budget, it's just like when we're trying to propose and fill a position for the police department, the budget was proposed with that employee coming in.
Oh, okay,
But once we have the employee on, that helps us reduce overtime.
okay.
I hear you correctly, it's 0% budgeted for overtime?
No, 0% increase.
So your actual was 230, and your budget was 253, so, yeah, this, okay.
Do you know what the default budget's going to be?
No, not at this time.
Oh, you don't?
No.
And the other question I had was, we don't have any other warrant articles?
We have the draft warrant articles.
I guess I don't.
Okay.
What happened to patriotic purposes budget? It's gone to 0.
I believe what we did was.
If I can answer your question a little bit about the payroll increase for the town hall employees. The administrator did a study exactly
That's the difference between
large
Yeah.
the budget we left last
the
week
difference
and
in pay.
tonight. Is
And
that
that's a little bit more.
Yeah.
No, I don't know.
Um,
I
It was
wasn't part of the
24.
vote.
Should have been captured.
Yeah, it should have been captured.
There is a difference from what we voted.
So it will be
It
changed.
wasn't as much as
So.
it was-
Okay, so there is an entry for that.
Yes, there is. It should be the amount that was proposed there. I didn't bring my notes in with me.
24.
So it-
Yeah, it should be 2460.
And for dollar
Yeah.
value,
It is substantial.
Yeah.
But it brings it in line with.
So there is an error. The patriotic purposes is supposed to be 2,460. So there will be a change in that bottom dollar amount on the budget by $2,460. It didn't carry over.
Left going to warrant article, so.
What's that? Yeah, it'll be changed on the warrant article. That's why we stick draft on there. Yeah, it didn't carry over when we approved it.
Cover sheet, yeah, but the budget, it's in the detail, but not on the cover sheet.
Yeah. And Jay, to go back to, it's not just a change in wages, it's a change in hours as well. We,
Substantial amount of hours, I mean, it's just a lot of money to me, John, you know that.
I understand that. No, we have increased the hours.
I've been with you for a couple of years.
Yeah.
so
Yeah, and it was as Mr. Coffey said, it was over 3 hours worth of, we left here at almost midnight that night. But what we have done is we have done some increase in hours, as well.
Substantial increase?
Yes, substantially. I think one position is over 5 hours a week, and the other one's I think 3 hours a week, 2 or 3 hours a week. So it's another 8 hours a week over the whole time.
Which positions are increasing in hours?
If the budget is passed, that would be both land use
Land clerk.
and building.
And planning clerk.
Yeah, planning clerk. And what it comes down to basically just, we have many, many years of trying to catch up on ignored items. And then just the basic fact of the increase in demand on those positions. But one of the big pieces, and I have no problem addressing it here, is when you look across the board, and I think most of our department heads can attest to this, we have done everything we can for many, many, many years to keep our budget as flat as possible. And unfortunately, many of the areas that took the biggest hit for us to be able to do that are wages for the employees of this town. We have people that are able to, they could literally leave here today, go to another town, and make $5, $6, $7 more an hour easily. And we have to make the decision whether it's better for the town to pay less or better for the town to retain good quality trained people. There were articles in the paper where they had employees that signed on for one town, not our town, but a neighboring town, and within a week had quit that job and gone to the next town because that town offered, a couple bucks more an hour. We are in a very lean employment positions that we have, as far as unemployment's very low. People have their choice to go elsewhere, and employers are doing everything they can to lure away quality trained people. So what we are trying to do is do our best to maintain and keep good quality trained people within our town. So.
And if I might, over the next 2 years, we really need to look hard at bringing our employees up to par with the surrounding communities. Otherwise, we are going to have a migration of employees to elsewhere. We're definitely facing some budgetary issues regarding paying our employees properly and retaining their institutional knowledge.
Something you needed, Mark?
I'm explaining the question on the block grant.
Okay. All right. Were there any other questions on the budget?
I had one, but I can't find it, so
Oh.
guess not.
Well, if you want to hold it, I can suspend this and you can think about it, and I'll go on because the next discussion is going to be very.
Great.
Then-
Don't wait
okay.
for me. Go ahead.
Okay, so we will put a suspension right now on the public hearing for the proposed budget because this next piece is going to be even quicker. At 7 p.m., we were supposed to start a public hearing on the $1.28 million bond for the proposed police station. Unfortunately, with the way the calendar fell And the way our local papers, nothing against the local papers, but we only publish twice a week local papers. And according to the definition from the state as what 7 days is, we missed the deadline for posting the $1.28 million bond. So the discussion came up as to whether we do everything we can to try to figure out a way around this, or whether we do a better job, save our money, get the information out there and bring this about next year. And that is its decision that the current board has made. That unfortunately right now the $1.28 million bond for the proposed police station and any police station articles that the board would be putting forth are going to be tabled for the this voting cycle and for the 2020 year.
So are you then going to be discussing Article 12?
Nope, because that is not put forth by the town. That is a petition article.
That is also a warrant article. All the warrant articles need to be discussed.
They'll be discussed, but what I'm saying is that I have no discussion on that because that is not, that's a petition article. So,
Can you give your feeling on it?
when I get to it, I got 11 articles before that one. So, all right. So at this point, the public hearing for the $1.28 million bond for proposed police station is a non-public hearing, so it's not happening. So, all right. Jay, did you come up with your question?
I did.
You didn't. We'll go on. Okay. All right.
Was Chairman Lage involved in that discussion about the?
We really had no choice. As far as his discussion, if he didn't answer his emails, then he was not in discussion.
It came down to,
When did you
we have an
discuss it
RSA.
publicly?
We unfortunately did not have the opportunity to discuss it publicly. We put it out publicly and said we were going to post a bond, and then we were told by the state that we couldn't hold the hearing because it was put out. So I discussed with Scott, this was our only option because the online version of the paper comes out Monday nights. The other one goes out Tuesday. And the state came back and said, well, that still counts tonight as your 7th day, and they didn't feel that was correct earlier. So really it was really a matter of how, the discussion that we had was how much are we going to fight it?
You can't fight it.
We can't fight it. So the discussion was
Never get the bond.
right. And that was the other piece, is we could spend so much time fighting it that we won't have time to go to bond bank and the bond council. So it really came down to a point of we can't do it. So there was no public discussion because it was a moot point in all reality. There was nothing we could do because by the time we fought it, we'd miss the next deadline. So unfortunately, this is where it stops for this
So
year.
Article 12.
Article 12 is something
everything
different.
that's voted in can't be executed.
No, that's not true.
It'll be discussed when you get there, right?
Right. Again,
Stop reading ahead.
yeah.
We can't just move ahead and.
No, we're gonna we'll go down the others just real quickly at the end, but I'm just gonna get to those. So, so going down the warrant articles, we'll just discuss those. One will be the election of officers. We will have that list. Article 2 will be the budget, which will also talk about the default budget, and the budget number will be corrected at the time before the budget hearing. Or before the deliberative session. Roadblocks grant. This is the money that we received from the state. This basically the state gives us the money. If we do not put this article in there, it basically tells us we can't spend it. It sits there. So it doesn't say we can't accept it because it's given to us, but this gives us the ability to spend it.
Selectman Deezer,
Yes,
we were gonna vote on the articles, on the warrant articles tonight?
we can.
Well, when else would we?
Again, we're going to do it again at the deliberative session because, again, Chairman Lage is not here.
Right, but it needs to be on, well,
What the vote would do,
It
would it
actually-
be the selectmen to place it on the.
The ballot.
Ballot.
But
for
the ballot, but the
deliberative session.
ballot isn't typed up until after the budget, the deliberative session, because we met last year, changes were made prior to. So, I'm asking that we wait until Chairman Lage is here and we take care of it all at once so that we don't have, but we can discuss our feelings on it. We can discuss your feelings about life in general if you'd like, Mike.
You don't wanna
But
hear
I'm not,
Well, which article is that?
yeah.
That's the last one.
I'm not, I personally, and I mean, Bert, you can, have your, I just feel that there's really no point doing it, because we'd have to change the vote anyway once
No,
Chairman
no,
Lage
I'm
comes in.
okay with that. I just want to make sure that if there are any
Oh,
questions.
if there's any
on
questions, people can
particular
definitely.
articles, because I do have a couple questions on them. For instance, Article 4. Scott, is that the same
Are we going in order?
Yep, so we're on.
number? Article 4, is that the same number as was proposed last year, or is that an
No.
increase?
No, there's an increase in the, police cruiser capital reserve fund is up $20,000 to $40,000.
Okay.
And,
The others I left the same
Yeah.
because I've not had input from the board.
right, and Scott, just because I don't see them,
Yep.
the other two road articles, I do not see, and the 250 and the 350 need to be put in as well.
So I had a question on that because the ones from last year implied that they were good for over a 5-year period.
They are, but we spent them.
Okay,
We spend them every year. So the 250 and the 350 have to go back in as well.
okay.
So we normally put those right behind the blocks grants.
So you'd have a Article 3A, 4A.
No,
Yeah,
it'll change, yeah. Yeah, so so we will have two road block articles in there, or road improvement for 250 and 350 as well.
I think the board needs to vote on that here at this hearing,
Yeah.
because you need to leave this hearing with that in there. So I think the board, it's your warrant,
Okay, well, yeah,
you need to vote on it.
I understand that. It was a miscommunication, I believe, between us and
I don't have a
Scott.
problem.
No, I
I'm
was just
you
saying,
need to vote
so,
on it. That's-
all right,
don't-
motion to put in two warrant articles, one for 250,000 and one for 350,000 for the road improvements.
I will second for discussion. If you don't mind, I just need to ask a question for a point of information.
Okay.
Do we need to have the articles written before we can vote on them? Because we're voting blank here.
It's gonna,
I don't think so, as long as everybody here understands that you're going to insert the same two articles that you had the prior year.
Okay.
Yeah.
What were the amounts again?
250,000 and
You can
350,000.
scroll on your worksheet there, we can write it in here.
Oh, good.
It's
Okay.
just, once you leave here, you can't change it,
Yeah.
bring another hearing.
Just being all in favor.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Okay, so back to,
Article
so we screwed, back to, well, so we have the Article 4, which was the Capital Reserve Trust, Expendable Trust, 235.5. Meredith?
You said that everything else remained the same, Scott. The fire department went down by $8,000 in our capital reserve contributions. I would like to put that back to last year's, which was $20,000.
I think this was right out of last year's,
According to the email you sent me, it has 20,000, and it was 20,000. We amended it at the deliberative session last year.
Maybe that's why it didn't translate.
No, it should have been on this, the ones that were printed in the town
Is that
report.
the protective equipment capital reserve, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So the protective equipment one should be 20,000, and it shows it's 12. And the original proposed budget last year was 12, and we amended it at the deliberative session to be 20 to start recouping monies to look for replacement of SCBA's in 15 years.
yeah, I don't know if it's back there, John. It's in my office.
Oh, okay. Jay, while he goes and gets that, do you have a question?
How did you know?
I saw you raise your hand
On my
before.
face, I have a question.
You have a quizzical look.
Oh, I was just gonna ask if you have the totals on on the capital reserve accounts for each one of these accounts that you've laid out here?
No, I do not. Unfortunately, I have the ones prior year. We did not receive them this year.
Can we get those, will those be available deliberative session, so when I ask the question there, I get an answer?
Yep.
Awesome.
We'll make a point of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 20.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So motion to change fire department protective equipment to 20.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Welcome. And Scott, request from the gallery.
Yep.
Can we have the balances of those capital reserves available for the deliberative session?
Yes, you'll have them for that, for sure.
Thank you. Okay. Article 5, library. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $40,000 to support the New Ipswich Library.
Can I go back one, sorry?
Yes.
Mike just pointed out to me that warrant article this year should read expendable trust for the fire department protective equipment. Because last year it was a vote to change that from.
For the fire department protective equipment expendable.
Should be an expendable trust.
Okay.
Thank you.
So library, what was the library last year?
37.
37.
Now,
30. Yeah,
37.
37.5.
Why does it keep going up when you're the ones who got all the money?
My question.
Yeah, I've asked that question for years.
Yes, get into the-
So what we looked at this year was they gave us a proposed budget. I looked at what they had proposed to spend on the different items, and then I took out any of their capital works that they were going to do. So none of this money is to go to any improvements on their building, repairs on their building, anything like that. They had some increases in the cost of museum tickets that they give at a discount, as well as some other programs went up, and the hiring of a new director for the library. So that's where the increases came in.
They did a very good job at justifying this
Yeah,
expense.
but what I did is, like I said, I went
Well,
through.
I believe you.
Yeah, no, but I went through, and I,
You know,
yeah,
government.
trust me, I sat and then I did the math and I made sure that, because their budget was quite a bit higher. And then I asked them, went through, and I said, so what you're asking for is 100% what is going to the people of the town, not to maintaining the building. And they said yes, and that was what changed, because I had voted no as well. And then I changed my vote because they want to, again, increase the amount that they're able to do for the town, which is something I guess a lot of us don't know. Every time we rent an ebook, which I didn't understand, I didn't realize this. So if anyone from the town rents an ebook from the library has to pay the state for every single one of those books. So it's not just a one-time flat. They have to pay for every single one of those books every time it's rented. So some of our money is going to the library, but it's actually going to the library so they can pay the state so we can actually have a service. So, but
Yeah, they do provide a lot of other services. You know, I'd recommend anybody that you check out all the services that they provide. You know, the list is pretty long.
I know that you guys said you're not voting tonight, but I do know that last year, the select board voted not to recommend the article when it was less than it is this year. So
No,
I was
they
just
wanted
wondering what
40.
your feelings are on that this year.
They wanted 40
no.
last year.
yeah, we changed our vote last year. Again, they wanted 40, and we voted no. And then it was adjusted to 37.5, and I think it was 2-1 when it actually went. Yeah,
Yeah.
it went 2-1. And this year again, I think it was leaning 2-1, or it might have been 2-1 against. And then when I discussed and found out exactly what the money's going to, and that this $40,000, because again, we came to the fact of whether or not the library had spent their money. Because in the year prior they had not, and in this year they had, because they finally got the building painted. They did septic issues, and I think they replaced the carpet, and they have some other things that are coming up. But so they did actually spend, because again they're only able to spend the interest, but they actually did spend all their money this year. So that was my change in it, because in the prior year they had not spent all of their money. So.
Vote on this one?
No, we don't have to, because there's no change on that one. Article 6 is the ambulance service. We don't, I don't have the dollar amount. Mark, do you have the dollar amount for the ambulance service? Yeah,
$98,065.
$98,065. Thank you.
That's not in your draft?
No, I just have ambulance service. Oh, I'm sorry, it's that, it dropped down. Sorry, so $98,065.
And that is, by the way, a fairly substantial increase from last year.
And, yeah, and what that came down to, for some explanation on that, is they actually have less guaranteed paying customers, but the service is, so they're getting as many calls, but less people are paying their bills.
What was it last year?
About 84,000 and change. I don't remember the exact number.
I was looking.
$84,971.
So the number of calls has not reduced, but their number of paying customers has. All right. Article 7. Article 7, Fire Department, SCBA's, see if the town will raise and appropriate a sum not to exceed $250,000 for the purchase of self-contained breathing apparatus, packs, bottles, and masks to replace non-compliant equipment. Any grant monies, if awarded, will be applied to offset the expenditure.
Meredith, can you tell us how many units you're gonna buy for $250,000?
It'll be under $250,000, but what we need is 23.
23 sets.
So they're all out of compliance,
Yes, because they were purchased in 2005,
and they're good for how long?
15 years. So as of now, every time, we just got one, we sent one out, and it just came back that they won't service them at this point because they have reached the end of their life expectancy. And the bottles that we have been hydro for the last time. Which is why I also asked for the increase in the capital reserve contributions. Try and make sure we don't end up in this situation again. We are gonna be applying for an AFG grant, which is assistance to firefighters. It has not opened yet. If we get that money can be then given back to the town to cover the cost of the warrant article.
Do you know how much potentially it's available for?
We would have a 5% match is what we would have, so we would put in for the full request of the total cost of 23 packs, bottles, masks for everybody, and then they would give us all except the 5%.
That money that you might get back wouldn't go directly to self-contained breathing apparatus, it would just go in the general.
If we have already purchased the gear, the packs, the SCBA's, then it would go back to offset that expense to the town. I don't know, maybe you can help me, does go back into the general fund, I don't know.
It would
where it
likely
goes.
go back in the terminal.
That's the only question.
But you're voting on it as a trust, how can it go back to?
No, two different things.
Okay.
The trust is 20,000. She's talking about the 250,000.
Separate
Maybe I
warrant article.
misunderstood, I thought she wanted Article 7 reworded to make it a trust.
No.
that was Article 4.
Article 4, thank you, yep, yep.
Sure.
Question, is this a special article? The reason I asked the question is, with a special article, the money can only be used for that purpose.
Right.
If it's not a special article, and you got money left over, which could be everything but $10,000 or $12,000, that money could be wheeled around town in a wheelbarrow, so.
Well, I think it would be considered a
So
special article.
I would suggest that this be plugged in as a special article, and
Doesn't matter, because
You
I'm
can't
only gonna buy,
transfer-
we're gonna only gonna buy gas with it, so.
no, it does, I'm not saying anything against what you're trying to do.
No.
I'm just saying is that if it's a special article, that money has to go into that category. And if there's anything left over at the end of the year, then it would go into the general fund.
Right.
Okay.
It specifically says it's for the purchase of SCBA's.
And like Meredith said, if the money's already been raised and appropriated and spent, and then we get the grant would offset this,
Yeah.
yes,
Well,
so.
when you, has this been put into the state's portal, these articles?
Not yet.
So the state has not reviewed it?
Yeah, not,
Okay. Well, when you put them in here, it's either a regular article or a special article. I'm just suggesting it goes in as a special article.
Right.
Yeah, based on last year now, see, usually when they say it'll go into the fund balance, that sounds good.
It doesn't say
Base-
fund balance, we
Yeah.
said general fund.
Or, oh, the general fund, okay, that usually sounds good, but doesn't that end up in the fund balance if we help the
If it-
fund balance in the end?
Only if it's not, only if the money isn't spent.
Right, okay, but usually that sounds pretty good, but in last year's case, the fund balance that we had didn't help offset taxes anyway.
Again, why are we going to offset taxes when it's not the town's portion of the taxes? So why should we take our budget to offset taxes for a different part of the tax bill?
You don't.
That's what I'm saying.
You don't do that. Because if you look at the tax rate setting, you're offsetting your own tax rate.
Right.
It goes against
But
your tax rate of the town.
It does, but we're subsidizing an increase on the tax bill that is caused by the school district, not by the town. When people say their taxes are too high, my town portion of the taxes is next to nothing for the services I receive. I'm not going to use the fund balance to offset the school system, when their portion is a part that is 75% of your tax
What are you
bill.
gonna do with the leftover money? Hoard it?
We have a
You
plan,
gotta give it back.
Yeah,
and we have a plan for it.
yeah,
We'll
yeah,
get to the plan, that's later.
that's the problem.
Good question, do you
Yes.
know what the fund balance is right now?
Last I saw, I think it was 2.3. We did have a slight increase over last year, so I think last I looked, it was, if we had taken out the 1.2, we still would have had over 750,000, I think, in there.
The
So
state requires a percentage of how much of your,
I apologize, I don't know that.
from 3 to 7%.
Yeah.
So
5 to
there's
15.
a lot of money.
It's 5 to 15%, somewhere in that range, I think, against the whole budget, because those other expenses are part of the of the overall budget, the county, the state, and the school.
Article 8, Regional Health Services, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $9,550 for the purpose of funding the following regional health services that assist New Ipswich residents. There was no change on this from last year. Dissolution of the 250th Celebration Expendable Trust. See if the town will vote to dissolve the 250th Celebration Expendable Trust and transfer the remaining balance into the general fund.
I thought we did something with that last year,
Yeah.
John.
It got voted down.
Voted down.
Really?
Yeah,
And what's the dollar value of that? It's like 5 or 7?
Yeah, it's like 7,000. I think it's almost $8,000, I think, and it's sitting there and we can't touch it. We can't do anything with it.
Repurpose it to the 300th anniversary.
Again, actually, we can't again, to do it, you still have to dissolve it. Last year, we tried to dissolve it and change the name of the fund to a community beautification fund,
Right, I remember.
and it still got voted down. So we're just trying to get the money out so we can use it to do something with it for the town. Because right now it's literally just sitting there doing nothing. It's money that was left over, and again, it was earmarked for the 250th celebration, so we can't do anything with it at all. And so,
I just hate to see any kind of money put into the general fund balance. I mean, especially
Right.
now knowing we got 2.1 million in
Right.
there.
can we reword that back to the other, or was there a reason we couldn't do that? Reword it again so that state's going back into a community beautification or
Yeah.
community improvement expendable trust.
We could do that, but, let me check with DRA how to word it. It's almost easier to put it back in the general fund and then repurpose it next year with a new warrant article. So it's harder to repurpose than it is to dissolve,
Okay.
but we can check.
Okay.
Dissolve will pass, so.
Does repurposing require a 2/3 passing?
I believe it does.
Yeah, which is why it didn't pass last year.
So I would just leave it alone.
Okay.
What was the question?
To repurpose, you need a 2/3 majority to repurpose.
Yeah, which is why it had a majority vote, but just not 2/3. So that's why it sat there. So.
Yep.
Household hazardous waste, shall the town raise and appropriate the sum of $4,640 to participate in the City of Keene Household Hazardous Waste Program. This is the amount we are charged by the town of Keene in order to get rid of household hazardous waste, paint, all that good stuff. So our plan this year is to be better at publicizing these dates. So. All right, Article 11, by petition, shall the town vote to increase the amount of the previously adopted optional tax credit for the total service connected disability form, the present $2,000 to $4,000, as authorized by RSA 7235.
Actually, form should be from.
From.
Typo that spell check didn't catch.
Do you know how many citizens get this tax credit right now in New York?
14.
14. This has already been passed by other cities and towns.
Is this the same one that was a warrant article last year?
Yes.
Yeah, it was voted down last year.
Yeah.
There's only 14?
Yep.
Police Station Capital Reserve Fund by petition, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $2,500,000 and no cents for the purposes of purchasing, financing, the design and construction of a new police station with supporting infrastructure on town-owned land, map 11, lot 16, and equipping same with building will house the town's police department, and to authorize the creation of a capital reserve fund through taxes for $2 million and no cents over a period of not more than 4 years, and to use an additional $300,000 and no cents from the fund balance, and to use $200,000 and no cents from the fund balance for overages, change orders, and contingencies under and in compliance with the Municipal Finance Act, RSA 33-1. As amended, and to authorize the Board of Selectmen to 1, apply for, obtain, and accept federal, state, and other aid, if any, which may be available for said project, and to comply with all laws applicable to said project. 2, appropriate and collect funds as necessary. 3, take any other action or pass any other vote relative thereto. 4, all expenditures of these funds shall be by unanimous vote of all 3 selectmen. This article requires a 50% majority to pass. This article shall be null and void if a bond article authorizing funds for this proposed police station passes.
So since the bond is not in there, that line could almost be eliminated, right?
Well, since it's by petition, I don't think you can change it.
Yeah, you
Right.
can't change it.
It's gotta be in there.
Has this article been reviewed by any legal counsel?
No.
Because I'm gonna tell you right now, it's illegal,
Why?
the way it's written.
Why?
I'm gonna say it's awful
Why?
wordy.
Because what you're doing is, you're raising, you can't raise a pile of money and then apportion it out over 4 years. You gotta be specific.
No, it's being raised over 4 years, not apportioned. That is specific.
I think you got problems with this article, big problems. And I think that.
That's
you
okay.
should- You should have run this by, and it has to go in the way the petitioners brought it.
That's correct.
Right, and that's how it was brought. So,
Okay, but I think you need to have your legal counsel look at this and advise you as to, maybe there's some things that need to be amended to make it legal.
It cannot be amended because it's a citizen's petition.
It can be amended at a deliberative,
The only thing at a deliberative session that can be amended is the,
you can't change the purpose.
it cannot change the purpose. You can correct the language as long as it does not change the purpose or the intent, and it can change the dollar amount.
I'm a little confused, so that it says 2 million over a period of not more than 4 years, so presumably $500,000 a year to be raised through
It-
taxation or
Correct,
some other
correct.
way.
speak to the petitioner.
And then, I guess what I'm confused about is the 300 and 200,000, because they both say they're from fund balance?
Correct.
So what's the difference between,
One is through a taxation, increase in the tax base. The other is monies that we already have within the fund balance of the town.
The other question.
So I believe to answer your question, if I
Yeah.
understand, so he feels that the 2,300,000 is what he feels it's gonna cost, but he wants an extra 200,000 in case there are any
Okay.
additional, so that we don't have to come back to the town. If this were to pass, they wouldn't have to raise another warrant article to go back into
okay,
the fund
So-
balance a second time.
2 million from taxes or other sources,
Right.
300,000 from the fund balance with the option to go back for an extra 200,000 if the project goes over the original
Correct.
2.3. Okay, I get it.
Right.
I know Dave's not here, but can I get an idea how the other two selectmen feel about this?
The other two selectmen were not in favor of this.
That's correct.
Because if I look at it, if we couldn't get, if we couldn't get what we needed out of the voters, I don't think we're gonna get 500,000 out of them for the next 4 years.
So is it gonna say not recommended by the selectmen?
Yeah, I mean, put it this way, I can't speak for Dave today.
Based on that, will it say?
It would say not
by the
recommended.
selectmen? Okay, can I ask how the finance advisory committee is?
This is the first time we see it.
Yes, we've seen it.
So how do you feel
That's
about
all
raising
I'd say.
taxes by $500,000 a year for the next?
I'm the
4
liberal
years.
I'm the liberal
How do you
crazy on
give
this
me my
crew,
teeth
and
in?
I would not recommend it. Not the way it's written.
Yes.
So my question is, would that be considered an expendable trust instead of a capital reserve? I thought the capital reserve required the vote of the town.
You are correct.
Okay.
But the petitioners asked for it to be put in a capital reserve, so then we would then, after raising $200 million or $2 million, we would then have to then go to the town and go, can we spend that $2 million to build the police station? So it would sit there until the town then allowed us to spend it.
Aside from the fact that I don't repeat myself, I think there's a lot of holes in this. And I'm not saying this for or against it, I don't think it's legal. But one thing I'd like to point out is it looks at using fund balance,
Mm-hmm.
okay? And I think, you can appropriate from fund balance, but it's gotta be from the fund balance of the year that's just ended. That's how you normally do it, going into a warrant. I'm gonna take $100,000 from December 31st fund balance. Unfortunately, you don't print in your town report the December 31st fund balance, you printed last year, the year before, which had no relationship to what you were doing. So I suggest that, you should be able to get a balance sheet off your accounting system.
I wonder if there's any way we can keep it worded so it doesn't change, not recommended by the selectmen and not recommended by the finance advisory committee. In other words, I don't want them to go up there and reword it so it changes their mind.
It cannot be reworded. It is a citizen's petition signed by 25-plus voters. It goes on the ballot as written.
Yeah, well, Jim makes it
However-
sound like you go rewrite it.
However,
No,
no, you cannot rewrite it.
No.
However, the courts have upheld the intent of a citizen's petition. So if it does pass, and there is problems with it, as you pointed out, the courts will uphold the intent of this to actually allocate the funds.
So, I've seen, like, the best example I guess I could come up with is, like when school districts do collective bargaining agreements, those are often multi-year contracts, and they say we're going to raise $80,000 in year one, and in year two, we're gonna raise $84,000, and in year three, we're gonna
Yep.
raise $90,000.
Right.
So I think it is possible to allocate multiple years. I mean, maybe I'm wrong.
It
Scott,
absolutely
maybe,
is.
You know, I think probably what Jim is saying is convoluted in this is that it doesn't spell that out. In
That's
the same way
correct.
that I've seen in
And it
other
was
collective bargaining agreements.
specifically left off
Yeah.
such that the selectmen, if this happens to pass, which is a long shot at best, if it happens to pass, that the selectmen can best figure out how to make it work best within the budget.
Because with this, you don't necessarily have to raise
That's
$50,000
correct.
per year. You could say, we're raising it all in one.
That's
conceivably.
correct. If that's how the selectmen feel that they want to approach it, that's fine. I specifically left it that way when I wrote this thing. I left some loopholes and some maneuvering room.
As my point to you, Brian, unless his dollar value doesn't change, then my opinion won't change. So that's
You mean unless the dog,
yeah. Put this way, if they're trying to raise, if they're trying to increase the tax rate by or the budget by $500,000 a year for 4 years, sorry.
I was, because I've wondered this in past years because this is obviously not the first year that this issue has been on the warrant. Has the board considered creating a capital reserve account for the police department and putting $200,000 in it per year for the next 5 years or so? Because even, I know you're trying to get this passed like this year or next, but if it doesn't pass, that would at least give you some money to nest egg, I guess.
It's been thought about, but again, and Jay, you were sat here when we went over the math on it. It actually costs the town less to do the bond than it would to raise $200,000 a year.
That's why when you said you weren't able to do it this year, I was kind of deflated because
The bond rates right now are ridiculous. They are less than half of what we thought they were going to be when we proposed it last year. And yes, trust me, very disappointed, but there's really nothing we can do.
Have you
Jim?
considered a
Another
special town
another
meeting?
thought on bonding, okay, is, I'm 80 years old, okay? I'm not gonna live another 50 years. I'm probably not gonna live another 10 or 20.
odds on.
And you wanna take all that money from me to buy this thing in 4 years? You're out of your mind, okay? I think the people that get the benefit of it should pay for it, and as you pointed out, this isn't the Carter years with 20% interest rates.
Mhm.
In some places in Europe, there's negative interest, okay? So I think that the way to build something is like this, is to bond it with a modest down payment that might cover all your preliminary work and stuff to get it presented.
And Ashley, to go to your point, once Chairman Lage is back, we can have that discussion. Unfortunately, it's one of those things, it's not gonna happen now.
Yeah.
So it may be something that we can tag team into another because we've got 4 elections, I think, or 4.
The deliberative
four.
section, it'll
Yeah.
work.
Yeah, so we can work something else. Brian?
Yeah, and I'm 63, and I agree with Jim, you're out of your mind.
Rename it after.
I mean that in a friendly way.
What's the dollar value that you had figured to build this police station? Is it 1.5 or 1.8?
Total, I think it was 2.3, I think,
It
altogether.
was that much, okay.
Yeah, I think it was 2.3 altogether.
Okay, I was gonna say, we got 2.1 in the bank. We could-
And we thought, and that's the thing, I mean, right now, we kept it where it was, and only because we didn't want to go in with, before we knew exactly what it was, but that did come up, is that we could reduce the amount of the loan by taking more out of the fund balance. So that could become a discussion, but again, we kind of had, we had a short window to make a quick decision on whether we were even going to try to go forward. So we will discuss at another point once, but Chairman Lage won't be back, I think, till the 22nd, so. Yes.
The 1.28 bond discussion, had that gone through, would that have been required a 2/3 vote?
Yes.
It would have.
3/5 actually.
3/5.
All right, moving on. Article 13, Green Farm Road and Jacqueline Drive Road acceptance by petition to see if the town will vote to accept the roads in Phase 2 of the Green Farm Village cluster development, including the continuation of Green Farm Road and Jacqueline Drive, a distance of 3,168 feet, or 0.6 miles and 28 feet wide, more or less as a public highway, authorized by RSA 67440-A. This article is contingent upon the completion of Articles B09B through B09D, as laid out in the subdivision regulations of the town of New Ipswich, New Hampshire, adopted March 6, 1986, and if the Board of Selectmen do not accept the road as a public highway by petition prior to such town voting date set March 10, 2020. So this is this is a section of roadway that the town, the selectmen aren't looking to vote on yet because there are several parts that are not completed. So the petition has come forth to us to put it on here so that the town would vote on whether to accept that chunk of land as town road.
But it's not, it doesn't meet town specs yet.
I'll get it back.
There are parts of the subdivision that have not been completed. The road itself, I've driven it, but there are other parts, so until the other pieces are completed, we won't even consider the road because the subdivision itself is not complete. So if the subdivision isn't complete, we won't even consider the road.
Actually, on the acceptance portion, the only thing the planning board is waiting for is for the as-bills. All the other work has been completed to
Okay.
the best of our information. However, before the as-bills are submitted, the planning board cannot act upon it to make a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen, so the Board of Selectmen actually have nothing in front of them.
Right.
And this would increase the town road
Yeah, by
by some
By-
small amount.
0.6 miles.
And the first phase was accepted years ago.
Yep.
And it is used
Is
as
it?
a throughway.
Oh,
What's
I
that?
mean,
Yeah.
I'm not opposed to
Yeah.
it. I think if they build the road right, it's being used by the general public, the town should take care of it.
Yeah, but right now, the developer is still stuck with plowing it and doing any maintenance that's necessary. So I don't think we should be in a rush to accept it. You know, if he doesn't provide us as-bills, we'll let him plow it for the next 5 years.
Any other questions on the warrant articles?
There's certain rules about which ones we make recommendations on and don't. Is it only warrants that raise funds?
Yeah, basically, if it causes, if there's really a dollar value to it, you know, for example, I mean, even though the $150,000 road bond doesn't raise, you would still, you can still make a recommendation because it's money that would help offset costs in other areas of the budget.
And
But basically, you know, petition, you would still, if there's a dollar amount, it would be on there. The road one, I'm not 100% positive on.
I don't,
Well, it would incur a cost.
It would incur a cost, but I don't think, because there's not a dollar amount affixed to it. I mean, and obviously on Article 1, you wouldn't have any recommendations on that.
I'll say to the noise ordinance, I know it's missing.
Well, I don't know about that.
You might have opinions.
is that the same thing?
All right,
Yeah, there's certainly.
all right, so then I,
John, one issue. There was a second
Well,
citizen's
he's
petition, it's
suggesting
not on
delivery
here,
now.
that was filed with
I
town
mean,
clerk
that's
on
certainly
noise
the
ordinance
latest.
change for reducing the hours of recreational shooting.
Election schedule.
when did,
It was submitted same time as the police thing.
did you receive it?
It
I don't
probably
recall
got,
seeing it, wasn't in my
but
file.
I have the signed stuff from the clerk and so forth, so it really needs to get added.
Okay.
But I don't know if you wanna announce it or.
All right,
just-
evidently, so, I guess there is another by petition article before we close this. There was a article that I guess did not make it from the town clerk's office to the, to Scott's office. A change in the noise ordinance pertaining to the hours that, shooting is allowed in town. So,
In town, meaning the entire town.
yes. Yeah, unfortunately, yeah, they don't really regulate one area or the other.
I
So.
didn't know if you had density regulations as opposed to.
No. No, you
No, it's just there, it's all the same, which way you can and can't shoot, and the hours that you can and can't shoot.
What are,
Yeah.
what are
300
the,
feet from an
The
occupied
current
building.
hours for shooting are from 7 AM to 10 PM. The proposed article reduces the hours from 7 AM to 7 PM.
Why would it be from sunrise to sunset? You really wanna be firing a firearm when you can't see?
In the dark.
How do you know you can't see?
Sunset.
How do you know you can't? What if I have lights in my yard
Ah.
that completely light up my yard, and I can see? I have a nice shooting range set up, and I can see just fine.
No,
That's
that-
fair.
that-
I hadn't thought of that.
that-
I don't have lights in mine.
what about optics? I have optics.
That question.
That worries me.
Then you have them.
Gentlemen, we have a question.
One other thing to add to that as well is the state of New Hampshire allows night hunting of coyotes.
Right.
Which that would essentially eliminate that option.
Jay?
My concern is it's just a foot in the door to regulate my Second Amendment, right? And also, at the same time, I don't believe you can modify town regulation to just isolate one particular activity. If you're gonna regulate the noise ordinance, then you have to regulate the entire noise ordinance. You
Which would
can't-
also change fireworks and everything else.
It would change the hours you can have somebody in your yard playing guitar. It can regulate the hours you can mow your lawn. It can regulate the hours you can split wood. It's an infringement, so.
Yeah, I would agree.
Mr. Coffey?
The ordinance, the noise ordinance, is it part of the town zoning?
No.
No.
So it's an adopted separate ordinance.
Correct.
Yes,
Does it require any sort of special hearing prior to being put on
If it goes as a warrant article, the selectmen will be mandated to accept it. Whereas if it's not a warrant article, the selectmen can take it up as an independent and then require a public hearing to amend ordinances in general.
Okay, so this is not an ordinance that was promulgated by the planning board?
Correct.
Okay.
No, this is by petition from a section of the community.
But they want it for the whole town,
Correct.
including the backside of Bay Hill?
They got fire in the
Yeah,
Yes.
including my 3.34 acres on the side of town that's closer to Ringe than New Ipswich. Correct.
Yeah, mine too.
Yes.
And I like firing my ground.
Yes.
We all need to get together, gentlemen, and enjoy our Second Amendment rights, some said.
Come on up to my hill.
Okay. All right. So at this point, I will close the public hearing on the 2020 budget and discussion of warrant articles. Do I have a second?
Second?
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. All right. Thank you all very much for attending. Scott, do we have any other business?
One other.
Yes, sir.
We need to cancel our hearing, our meeting for tomorrow.
He didn't post it, so,
Oh.
all right. But we will put it while it's on public. There will be no selectmen's meeting tomorrow night, January 21st. Just for anyone watching. So again, no selectmen's meeting tomorrow evening, January 21st.
I know, Mark.
We have a motion to adjourn
Make a motion to adjourn.
and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.